The Sumerians flourished between 4000 and 2000 BCE. One of the gods of the Sumerians is named Tammuz or Dumuzi, is a shepherd god, god of agriculture, who dies by the hands of demons from the underworld, where he is brought down in front of the queen of the underworld. Ishtar, his sister and lover, goes down to descend to the underworld and saves him, and on his resurrection, the dead are brought back with him, bringing back springtime, crops, trees, flowers. This myth was told every year around springtime for the Babylonians and Sumerians. Over the course of centuries, Tammuz became synchronized with other gods. For example, Dumuzi Apsu, Damu, even Bel, who is a synchronization of Marduk, Tammuz, as well as Anu. But there also was a particular deity known as Dumuzi of Mashumagalana. This name means something along the lines of the flawless child, the eighth priest of the palm tree or the date palm. It is a symbol of agriculture. He is a fertility god who anoints, who heals, and who is responsible for the growing of crops. And as the Assyrians conquered the entire Near East, this god would leave his mark in the city of Sidon as a tutelary god, a personal savior god of the Sidonians, known as Yasumuni, or later on in Phoenician, Eshmun. Lord Eshmun, the archetype for many of the young, beautiful sons of God, like Attis, Adonis, Bacchus, Osiris, funerary gods, gods who anoint, who use oil for healing, the dead god, some call it, the corpse god. The Greeks made a constellation of this god, known as Ophiuchus, 13th constellation. He was the serpent bearer, the symbol of health and revival. Asklepius is the equivalent in Roman. Sanchun Neathon wrote that Zadok, the righteous first father, 7 sons, equated with the Greek Kabieri or Dioscuri, with no named mother, and then afterwards fathered an 8th son by Artemis or Astarte, the name Eshmun, meaning the 8th. The Neoplatonist Damascus tells us that the Asclepius of Beirut and Sidon is neither Greek nor Egyptian, but some native Phoenician divinity. For Zadok were born children who are interpreted as Dioscuri and Kabieri. In addition, these were born an 8th son, Eshmunus, who was interpreted as Asclepius. Photius summarizes Damascus as saying further that the Asclepius of the Phoenicians was a beautiful youth who was fond of hunting. He was seen by Astarte, who harassed him and pursued him, and in desperation, he castrated himself and died, just like Attis. Astarte then named the youth healer, Paeon, restored him to life with her warmth of her body, and made him into a god when he resurrected. A village near Beirut named Kabur Shmon, Eshmon's grave, still exists. Pausanias, in the 2nd century, tells us that a Sidonian claims that Apollo was the father of Asclepius, but unlike them, do not make his mother a mortal woman. An ancient hymn to Attis goes like this: Blessed One, whether born of Kronos, Zeus, or Rhea, I loudly hail thee, Attis. You, the Assyrians call thrice-desired Adonis. All Egypt calls you Osiris. Samothracians call you Adamas. The Phrygians Pappus, a corpse, a god, unfruitful, goatherd, green ear of harvested grain, fruitful, almond-born, and player of the pipes. This exact hymn to Attis was later repurposed by 2nd century Christians known as the Nazarenes, and they repurposed this hymn for Jesus. The earliest attestation of Eshmun seems to be the London Medical Papyrus, where we find transcribed in Egyptian hieratic syllabic script some sort of West Semitic magical text dated from the 14th to 17th century BCE. One of them contains the name of Eshmun and probably Astarte, while the number 33 alludes to the anonymous healer who was Eshmun. Eshmun, also venerated in Beirut as late as the rule of the Roman Emperor Elagabalus in the 3rd century CE. Coins of Beirut depict Eshmun on the back, with the caduceus, or the symbols of the snake, on the rod. In the same region, according to Damascus, a young hunter named Asclepius, who the Phoenicians call Eshmun, was obliged to practice self-castration because of Astarte's passion for him. The goddess, the mother of the gods, brought him to life again after the castration, using vital heat. The story presents several analogies with the myth of Attis, or as well as Adonis, but it's probably authentically Phoenician, like Melkart, who dies and then returns to life through the actions of a goddess who gives him immortality and divine powers. It is worth noting that the Lebanese Qabr Shmun, Eshmun's tomb, lies near Beirut. In this case, just like in Melkart's case, the dying and rising god is a seasonal pattern. It is agricultural and seasonal. It has to do with the springtime, the spring equinox. In Ezekiel 8:14 states, "The angel told me, you will see committing greater abominations. Then he brought me to the entrance of the north gate of the house of the Lord, and I saw women sitting there, weeping for Tammuz. Son of man, he said to me, do you see this? You will see even greater abominations as these." Now, the reason why this is so profound is because it tells you that the people in the time of Ezekiel, Tammuz was still an important deity to the Semitic peoples of the Levant and Israel. Weeping for Tammuz was the sacred rites of weeping for the death of agriculture, waiting for the rise of agriculture, the rise of the Son of God. Eshmun's Greek equivalent, Ophiuchus, he is standing on top of scorpions and holding a serpent. I don't think it's a coincidence that Luke 10:19 tells us, "Behold, I give you power to tread on serpents and scorpions, and over all the power of the enemy, and nothing shall by any means hurt you." This motif is extended to the Old Testament, when Moses tells the Israelites to take the serpent and put it on a pole in Numbers 21:5-9. The symbol of the rod of Asklepios is given in this passage, also the caduceus of Mercury, who was the messenger of the gods. The etymology of Eshmun clearly connects him with oil, which had a therapeutic and ritual function in relation to the kingship ritual. When a Phoenician king was anointed, they would be dabbed with oil, which is where the term anointed comes from. In the ancient Near East, the Ebla archives, middle of the 3rd millennium BCE, theophoric element, Shmuna, is found in some personal names, written in Sumerian means oil. Eshmun is also the brother of the goddess Hygia, which means help, who's also found in the temple of Eshmun in Beirut. In the Eleusinian Mysteries, a similar story is told about Adonis, who is restored back to life by Persephone on the condition that he spends 6 months with her in the underworld, signifying in an agricultural sense 6 months of the year for dying crops, 6 months of the year for rising crops. When we examine the sarcophagus of Ashmunazar II, whose name literally means Eshmun saves, we are told quite a bit about the god. In the month of Bul, in the 14th year of the reign of the king Eshmunazar, king of the Sidonians, said as follows, I was carried away before my time, the son of a limited number of short days. This resting place, may they not have a resting place with the Rephaim, may they not be buried in a tomb, and may they not have a son of offspring. Rephaim is a Semitic Hebrew word for healers. Then it says, priestess of Ashtart, Our Lady, the Queen, daughter of King Eshmun, king of the Sidonians. It is we who have built the temples of the gods, the temple of Ashtarte in Sidon, the land of the sea. And we have placed Ashtarte in the mighty heavens with Adonai Eshmun. And it is we who have built the temple for Eshmun, the prince of the sanctuary, of the source of Yedil in the mountains. And we have placed him in the mighty heavens. And it is we who have built temples for the gods of the Sidonians in Sidon, the land of the sea, as a temple for Baal for Sidon, and a temple of Ashtarte, the name of Baal. Moreover, the Lord of Kings gave us Dor and Joppa, the mighty lands of Dagon, which are in the plain of Sharon, as a reward for the brilliant action I did, and we have annexed them. As you can see, Eshmun, the offspring of the mother queen of heaven and the Lord father Baal. Eshmun is the son of God, who is a healer, who rises every year. We see this motif all over the ancient world, as I've mentioned before with the hymn to Attis. The ancient people knew this. This wasn't any secret to them. It was quite well known. The Temple of Eshmun, a mile northeast of Sidon, consists of a grand court limited by a huge limestone terrace wall that supports monumental podium, which was once topped by Eshmun's Greco-Persian style marble temple. The sanctuary features a series of ritual ablution basins fed by canals channeling water from Asklepius River and from the sacred Yedel spring, as we heard in the sarcophagus. These installations were used for therapeutic, purificatory practice that characterized the cult of Eshmun. The sanctuary site yielded many artifacts of value, especially those inscribed with Phoenician texts. The Eshmun temple was associated with purification and healing. Ritual lustral ablutions were performed in the sanctuary's sacred basins, supplemented by running water from the river of Asklepios, or the Yedel spring water. The healing attributions of Eshmun were combined with the divine powers of his consort Astarte's fertilizing powers. The latter had an annexed chapel with a sacred pool within the Eshmun sanctuary. Sounds like baptism. Within the temple, among the artifacts of the archaeology that were found, was a golden plaque showing a snake curling on a staff, a Hellenic symbol of Eshmun. A granite altar bearing the name of the Egyptian pharaoh, Achoris, or Hagar. This gift attests the good relations between Pharaoh and the kings of Sidon. Also found within this temple was a large Belshazzar temple boy. This temple boy has an inscription that tells us that he's the son of King Bana, king of the Sidonians. Give to his lord Eshmun at the Yedel spring. May he bless him. So what we have here is an ancient Phoenician god who's the son of the Father of Heaven and the Mother of Heaven, who's associated with dying and rising, who anoints and heals and carries the rod of Asklepius. This, to me, looks like a Christ before Christ.